So let's start with the fundamentals. Let's give you a step-by-step process here. So start off with the lead list. Okay, where do you get the lead list from? Now, from my teams, we typically get all of our leads from Reonomy, CREsync, CoStar, and PropStream. These are the main core four. And then we take these softwares and these lead lists, and we run them through a software called Batch Leads, which is a skip tracing software. And this skip tracing software allows and basically scrapes all the data online for all their information, possibly gets us more phone numbers or better phone numbers. So I literally want to walk you through the process here, if you don't mind. I'm literally going to walk you through the process. So give me 1 second. I'm going to change my screen over here. So what I'm going to show you now is like the exact breakdown of the type of list that we go through. Okay, so we're going to go to advanced search here. We're going to go through a couple things. First things first, we're going to go to properties that have not sold. We're going to go to sales, and we're going to first start off with not within the last 5 years. Sale date with not within the last 5 years. Next, we're going to go to property type here, and we're going to be able to choose anything we want. So we're just going to choose an easy one. We're going to do multifamily because a lot of people are obsessed with calling multifamily properties. We're also going to start with New Jersey. Let's do New Jersey. So I'm going to break this all down for you. Basically, what we're going to do here is that we're going to get a very clean lead list. This is exactly what I pull all the time for my agents, okay? So next, we're going to go to taxes, and we're going to go to a $15,000 minimum taxes in real estate taxes. Next here, we're going to go to owner, and obviously we're going to want that it includes a phone number. Next is that we're going to go to building and lot, and we're going to go to year built before 2000. And then ideally, as long as I can see this, we have 4,000. If you see here on the right-hand side, it says 4,188 properties. This could be a decent lead list, or what you can do is that you can be more geographically focused, which we'll talk about later on in this content. This is just to kind of give you an idea of exactly the types of lead lists we pull, right? So you guys can do the exact same. Now, this is a basic lead list, okay? And then all you're going to do is you're going to hit apply. And then you're just going to go to export. You're going to go to export. Obviously, we have some exports available. So you can basically name this whatever you want. You would call this, New Jersey, lead list, or you're going to call it whatever you're going to want. And then you're going to want to be super specific with what this lead list entails, right? So taxes, 15K plus, right? You're going to get into as much description as possible so that when you upload it into the next layers and different softwares, you're going to know exactly what this lead list is, right? So the more specific you can be, the better. So what I'm going to do here is quickly move my screen around so I can, this is exactly what we just went through. Okay, this is the exact steps that we just went through. We broke it all down, and you saw that now we can go to exporting it. If you click next, we're just going to dive into Mojo. So this is the next place. So after you've exported the lead list, you're going to dive into a software called Mojo. So hold on 1 second. So in Mojo, all you're going to do is you're going to go to data and dialer. You're going to see a bunch of lead lists in a second. You're going to go to import file in the middle center here, and you're going to import that file. So you're going to take the lead list, you're going to import it into the file, and the main thing you're going to want to do is that in the Mojo dialer, which we're going to jump back now to this screen, so hold on. You're going to make sure you have the triple line dialer activated on your pre-recorded voicemails. What I recommend is that you're using the pre-recorded voicemails in Mojo as basically the same opening line, the same exact opening line that you're using, which we're going to talk about in a second for your scripting. So if we're going to basically break those down. And then the callback message is for those of you who have never used the dialers before, where you have, let's say, 3 lines dialing at the same exact time. What happens if 2 people pick up the phone? If you're ever wondering what happens when 2 people pick up the phone, one person gets a callback message, and then the next person gets picked up by you. And that callback message that I've used throughout my career is basically, hello, I think I have a bad connection. Let me give you a call back in a few minutes, and then I'll hang up. And that's exactly what my callback message says. So it feels true to that individual, and then we'll give them a call back as soon as that we hang up on that person that answers with us. And then there's also a one touch option because Mojo actually integrates with several different CRM systems. So it's a really cool, robust software, allows you to do a lot of things. The pre-recorded voicemails we're going to talk about right now. So what do you say? And for those of you who have not yet checked out my script book, what I want to do here is that I'm going to go down to the chat. Give me 1 second. I'm actually going to drop it in the chat box real fast. So give me 1 second. I'm going to drop it in the chat box. So this way you guys all have a copy of this. I'm going to throw it in the chat box right now. So give me 1 minute. Cool. So now that's going to be in the chat box for all of you guys who would like the ability to see it. Let me get back to the script. Okay, cool. So all of you guys who are listening now, and obviously if you're watching the pre-recording, you can go in the description on YouTube. Down below, you can download the script book. But that's the script book. So this is exactly what it says in the script book. So it'll say something like this as an opening line. Hey, John, my name is Henry. I'm a local investor, or you can say you're a local broker in the area. And I was just curious if you would be totally against selling your property at 123 Main Street. So very, very simple script. And this is exactly what I mean by the for your pre-recorded voicemails. This is exactly what you should be saying in just a much more condensed version. For your scripts right now, if you are saying that you're a local broker in the area, then your phone call should say the same exact thing. Hey, I'm a local broker my name is Henry. I'm a local broker in the area. I was just calling to see if you'd be open to a all cash offer or a no contingency offer on your property at 123 Main Street, or on your property, right? That'd probably be the best way to say your pre-recorded voicemail, on your property. And if you are, please give me a call back when you have a moment. Thanks so much, and drop your phone number. That's it. Right? Very, very simplistic. Keep it easy. And obviously, if you're an investor, you're going to do the same exact thing when it comes to being an investor. Stick with that. Now, let's dive into the number next. Now, the pivot strategy. Very important to realize what the pivot strategy is. The pivot strategy, okay? Pivot strategy is when you're on the phone with somebody and they say they're not interested in selling. Has anybody got somebody on the phone, you ask them if they're open to selling and they say they're not interested in selling? Yeah, happens to me all the time. So what you're supposed to learn, right, what they teach us to learn is, or a lot of people is, they just hang up. Like a lot of people don't realize that there's more to a conversation. Most of the time, people don't realize that there's so much more to a conversation because that's just a knee-jerk reaction. So what I have found that works very, very well is that instead of just relying on the fact of them saying, yes, I'm open to selling, we learn the pivot strategy, which is saying, would you be totally against selling your property? They say no. And then would you be totally against buying another property, listing the property for sale if I can get you the right price? Would you be totally, just curious, how many, do you have any vacancy in your property right now? Do you need support in leasing your property, right? Pivoting and going into different directions instead of just being stuck with the idea that you have to sell everybody's properties in one fashion. Because a lot of people are just so focused on only one way of it working. Realize if you call somebody up and they say, are you totally against selling the property? And they say no, you want to be able to pivot immediately. Right? You want to be in the boxing ring and you don't want to just be able to do a right jab because you're probably going to get knocked out. You want to be able to have some extra moves in your in your ability and skill sets. Now that we've kind of finished up the foundation, which you guys know how to pull a lead list, you guys know how to throw it into a dialer, and you know exactly what to say. Now I want to dive into the 6 simple pillars that will allow you to earn an extra $100,000 this year. So let's dive into number 1. Number 1, to earn an extra $100,000 this year, let's focus on increasing your average price point. I want to play this video really quickly by Alex Hormozi because he talks about the more expensive it is, the easier it is to sell. So let's see if we can get this to come up. Basically, it says here that if you just read the script here, it says like the most expensive thing, you basically want to get it into selling the most expensive thing you possibly can. It's actually a lot easier because you're going to have somebody who's like, trying to sell you, $50,000 consulting thing. They're going to say like, oh, here's your wire. And if you're trying to sell something for $50, they're going to ask you like 100,000 questions. Has anybody dealt with somebody trying to, help them with a rental for $500 or a $200,000 house sale? And then it takes them forever to make a decision. But when you've ever done $1 million sale, it was super quick. Right? Like this is what happens when you're dealing with a higher level of individual, right? You want to get into higher and higher, more expensive stuff. Thanks, Alex, for being super quiet. I'm sorry, I love you, but you were super quiet today. But we're going to move on to the next piece here. So let me explain to you exactly how to increase your average sales price. Okay. So the 3 main ways to focus on doing this. Okay. There's really 3 main ways. So number 1 is expanding your asset class. So some of you, right, are in the residential real estate world. Okay. And you guys are selling, $200,000 houses, $400,000 houses, $500,000 houses, $1 million homes, what have you. And some of you here who are watching today are in the commercial real estate world and you're really focused on maybe multifamily, or maybe you're focused on retail, or maybe you're focused on industrial. I'm talking about expanding your knowledge base across asset classes. So if you're in the residential space and wanting to touch on the commercial world, this is a fantastic opportunity to increase your price points because you're going to be targeting higher and higher demand asset classes. And obviously if you're just working on multifamily, maybe you're only used to 5 to 20 units. I was working with somebody recently who was like, oh yeah, I only work on the 5 to 49 unit base. I'm like, okay, well, you're really capped on what your average price point can be if you're only selling a certain type of asset. Okay. I want to break this down for you. Right? Because obviously, like, this is a main piece where if you're just focused on, raising your average price point in one specific asset class, like this will give you an example here, right? Your real estate taxes, you can raise that, right? Like, instead of just targeting properties with, $15K in taxes, you can do properties that have $20,000, $25,000, $50,000, $75,000 in real estate taxes when you're pulling your lead lists. A huge piece of this is going to be the expansion of, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. This is going to talk to you about the expansion specifically of asset classes. So in New Jersey, I grew up in Monmouth County, New Jersey. So if you know my story, I was born in Freehold. What's interesting here is that if you just focus on multifamily, Okay, this is like larger multifamily, 5 units plus. You're going to see there's only 523 properties available, multifamily, that are 15K in taxes. You have a phone number. So there's 523 properties. There was only 12 sales. If you were going to work as a broker in Monmouth County, one county, if you work in one county right now, this is just an example of what it could be like in your county. There's 523 properties and 12 sales. That means all of your income is going to come from 523 properties throughout the entirety of your career. That sounds freaking bananas. It's like, I don't even know how you can possibly make a living on this because there's only 12 sales in the last 12 months. And if there's a bunch of brokers, because you're probably not the only one in your county, this is exactly where it can be completely difficult, right? So what I did is, like, if you add industrial, it's another 335 properties and another 7 sales. If you added retail into this mix, you get another 703 properties and another 14 sales. So you're actually tripling the amount of properties in total of the lead list that you can pull, and you're tripling the amount of actual sold properties in the last 12 months, which gives you the ability to sell 3 times the deals. If you got the same percentage of that market, you'd be able to close 3 times the deals at the same percentage rate, right? Which is pretty cool. Second thing is expanding geographically. So not only could you expand the asset classes, but you can expand geographically, larger geographic. So let's talk about this. This is like this. I love this saying, and I say this all the time, which is what you prospect for, you will sell. Okay, remember that line because it's going to take you throughout your career. It holds true forever. And this is about targeting better markets, higher demand areas, and expanding into secondary and tertiary markets. So let's go back to our example, right? So expanding the geographic location until you hit a lead list size of between 500 and 2,000 properties. Because if you're targeting too small of a lead list, do you understand that some of my salespeople make between 400 and 600 calls or more a day? Do you understand if you had a lead list of 500 people, do you understand we could hit that list in a day? Now, what are you going to do for the other 30 or so days, or if it's February, the other 28 days or 27 days of the month? What are you going to do, right? You're just going to keep calling the same lead list? That sounds so silly, which is why you say we have to expand the geographics. So let's break it down now. So this is like what we were just talking about, which is, let's just say you were targeting either a city or a county. This is now going from counties to counties, right? At one county to counties, like going to, a tri-county area, right? Like adding a couple extra counties, or even going from county-wide to statewide. Now let's actually look at a specific example. So let's go back to what we just said. Now this is just multifamily, people. This is not industrial, retail, hospitality, office, or anything. Just multifamily, same exact criteria. So the same 15K in taxes, and you just have a phone number. There's no other criteria. In Monmouth County alone, there's 523 properties and 12 sales in the last 12 months. Now, if you expand that to the local 3 counties, now you're at 1,232 properties and 24 sales. But if you go statewide, you're up to 9,189 properties and 241 sales in the last 12 months. So if you go statewide versus countywide, you multiply the amount of properties by 17.5, and the amount of sales we went from 12 to 241, which is a 20x, which means if you got the same percentage of market share, you would do 20 times the deals. Isn't that crazy? Just the same percentage of market share. I'm not telling you to even increase your percentage of market share. I'm saying focus on expansion. And this is just multifamily. And we're only talking statewide. We didn't even go into the idea of going national. Lastly, to increase your price points, expanding your clientele type. Okay, so your clientele, this is going from first-time investors. Has anybody done any business with first-time investors before, looking for their first investment property? If you haven't already, I can tell you, I'm just going to be honest with you, it's tough, especially in the fact that we're in pretty high interest rate markets, which we're going to talk about interest rates later on today. But it's like, think about how crazy it is if someone's coming to you saying, hey, I'd like to buy my first investment property. They've never bought a property before, and many of you have never bought an investment property. How do you know if it's a good deal? We're going to talk about that today, which is why I have found that the higher up on the scale you go, right? If you go from first-time investors to even seasoned pros, people who buy 1 or 2 properties a year, you're going to have a way higher ability to close larger deals because you're dealing with a larger client base, a better client base, a more seasoned client base. So think about the kind of client base that you're working with right now, the type of investors you're working with now. If you're working with owner-occupied investors, right? Think about the type of individual you're working with. If they're only doing $1 million a year in revenue versus 10 million or 100 million in revenue, the type of properties they're going to buy are quite different. Now let's go to pillar number 2, which is increasing commissions. Okay. Who here wants to make more money on every single deal they close? Is it just me, or would you like to do so as well? Okay, cool. Awesome. I didn't think so. So let's talk about increasing commission. Now, what's interesting is the average commission percentage is equal to the better the deals you do and double ending more deals. So let's explain how this works. If you want to increase your commissions, you're going to have to focus on the following 5 things. Number 1, learn how to find better and off-market opportunities. Because if you're not reliant, if you are reliant, which you're going to see here in number 3 in a second, if you're reliant on what's on the market, are you really in control of doing more business? If you're just relying on what comes on the MLS or what comes on the CoStar or what comes on listed on LoopNet, are you actually in control of your destiny of closing deals? No, you're not. So you have to find and become masterful at finding off-market opportunities. Number 2, you need to become a master negotiator, because the better the deal you can negotiate, the higher likelihood it is for you to earn higher commission checks, right? Am I the only one who's ever earned maybe a 1% commission on a deal before? Have you guys earned 1% commission on a deal? The reason why you may have only earned 1 or 2% commission on a deal is because that deal was only good enough for a buyer to pay so much on the property. So what happens is when the deal is better, when you've negotiated a better deal, okay, what happens is the buyer's willing to pay more money for it. Shocker, right? So the better the deal you can negotiate, the more money the buyer is willing to pay. Number 3, avoiding on-market properties. You know why? Because there's a listing agent who controls your commissions. There is a listing agent who actually tells you how much money you can make on this deal. Isn't that crazy? That someone actually can tell you how much money you are able to make on a deal. I'm sorry, I want to be in more control of my destiny than relying on some random broker saying, you know what, we're only taking a 3% commission on this deal and you're only going to make 1%. Why on planet Earth would I try so hard if I'm only going to make 1%? Doesn't sound exciting to me. Number 4 is be direct to seller and be direct to buyer. This is very similar to number 3, but it's slightly different because there's so many people who go, oh, well, this broker sent me this deal and he wants me to try to help him find something. If you have a buyer, maybe we could do some business. So that means you're not direct to seller and you're not direct to buyer. How much money do you think you're going to make if you're just the middleman? You're going to get a split of a split, which no one likes to make. So I'm telling you, you need to become direct to seller and direct to buyer. And number 5, which I see so many people falling, or failing to do so, which is just asking for a higher commission, which is if you're doing a deal and you've negotiated a good deal and it's off market, you're direct to buyer and you're direct to seller, you have the ability to say, hey, I'm submitting this offer with a 6% commission on it, and the seller can then give you feedback. It's okay, but ask for the 6%, ask for at least 5% commission if the deal is good enough, and allow the seller to give you feedback. In a lot of the cases with all my teams and all the deals I've done, they just allow you to do it because all they're paying attention to is their net number. And if you can net them what they want, they really don't care what you make. Now let's focus on number 3, which is increasing the repurchase rate for clients. You want to deal with clients who are repurchasing frequently. Who here wants to do business with people who buy like 5 or 10 deals a year versus people who buy like 1 deal or less, right? I would think so. Me too. And look, remember this line, more active investors, right? The more active they are as investors, the more active your income is, right? I know it sounds simple, but that's the truth. And so many of us focus on investors who maybe only buy 1 deal or less per year. So let's talk about exactly how you can target these individuals. It's all about the pre-qualification, because as you're prospecting for sellers, we talked about the pivot strategy, right? When you say, hey, would you be totally against selling your property? And they say, no, I'm not interested in selling my property. What could you then do? I hope you're thinking about pivoting into, would you be totally against buying another property like your property at 123 Main Street? It's a very simple pivot. And when you use that actively, you're slowly but surely building up your buyer list. And you're getting all this criteria. And then what we like to do is you like to do a 2-fold pre-qual. What that allows us to do is when we have a full-blown conversation with them where we try to schedule a 15-minute call just to get a better understanding of exactly what they're looking for. One of the questions that we ask is saying, it's highlighted in purple here, how many properties did you buy last year? Because if they say 0, what's the likelihood of them buying a property this year? Pretty low. And then another question is, what is your goal to buy this year? What is your goal? How many properties are you looking to purchase this year? So many of us don't ask these questions and we go, oh, they bought 10 properties this year, so they're going to buy 10 properties this year. You cannot assume, because sometimes things have changed within their circumstances of their company. So it's important to take these 2 questions and make sure you ask every single buyer so you can get a specific idea of what they're looking for. And here's the interesting thing. Even if you have somebody who buys, let's say 10 properties a year, if you have somebody who buys 10 properties a year, what's interesting is you're not going to get all 10 of their properties every year. They're probably going to be working with multiple brokers. If they're a very seasoned investor, you're going to get a percentage of the deals that they close. And if you get a percentage of the 10 deals they close, you might get 1, 2, 3, 5, maybe 8 of those deals, but you're not going to get all 10, right? So if you have somebody who's only going to buy maybe 1 or 2 deals a year, how many properties do you actually think you're going to close with that person? So it's important to realize that you probably need a little bit more of a seasoned pro that you're working with, or higher quality investors who are buying a lot more properties more frequently. And all it takes is asking a few more extra questions in the pre-qualification. Next is pillar number 4, which is increased metric standards. So very shortly, I'm going to be getting a guest speaker on here, a good friend of mine. We're going to introduce him in just a moment here. What I want to talk about here is increasing metric standards. This is raising your level of, because when you raise your level of commitment, you raise your income. When we talk about this, we're specifically talking about the amount of calls you're making, the amount of conversations you're having, the amount of leads you're generating on a given day, the amount of appointments you're setting, the amount of starter offers you're giving, the amount of true offers from actual buyers who are looking to make offers on properties and right, your seasoned pros, right? How much content are you posting a day? How many referrals are you giving? How many referrals are you asking for on a daily basis? Like, this is just a few of the many metrics we ask to track. When your minimum metric, when your minimum standards, so many of you here have a minimum standard of, I'm going to prospect a few times a week. And sometimes when I speak to people, they're like, I don't know why I'm not generating more leads. I'm like, okay, well, how many calls are you having? And they'll be like, well, I'm probably having something like 10 or 20 calls a day. I mean, you're making 10 or 20 calls a day? How many conversations are you having? And they're like, maybe 2 or 3. You have 2 or 3 conversations a day? How do you think that you're going to make several $100,000, let alone any money in this industry? So I'm going to bring on a friend of mine. I'm going to introduce my friend Ryan Charterina, who's a top EOS implementer. He, is a creator of systems and processes and leadership for enormous companies, right? Minimum, like really 6, 7 figure, and then turning them to 8 figure, 9 figure companies. So Ryan, I'm gonna have you jump on in. So hold on one second while I jump off of here. Let me stop my share. Beautiful, Ryan. Thank you for coming on. If we can give it like a little wave for Ryan, we appreciate that. This is like how we round of applause on Zoom.
Love it.
Thank you for coming on, Ryan. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. I'm sitting in a hotel here in Dallas, so ignore the hotel back room.
No, we love it. Love it. So listen, thank you for coming on today. I'd love to have you talk a little bit, like we had mentioned before, on metrics and systems and processes that you found that have worked for the 7-figure and 8-figure businesses you work with.
Yeah, right to your example, right there about like how many calls are you making? What's the actions you're taking? Those leading indicators where people get stuck and where the businesses that I work with get stuck are right there. Like that 6, low 7-figure mark. They like fell into it. They did enough action to get them there. And then if you want to get past that, you want to get to the next level, you have to track these metrics, and not just track the metrics for yourself, but for your team. So I have a client they have 300 agents. Imagine trying to control 300 agents and the activities and actions that they're taking every single day. It's near impossible without some sort of scorecard metric across the entire company. How many calls did we make as an agency in this week? And then what does success look like? How do you tie that to the overall goal? So for all of you, I'm not sure the sizes of teams and the situations, but ultimately, what do you need to do every single week to get you to where you want to be in a year from now? And that is ultimately getting really, really disciplined on the weekly actions is just going to get you where you want to be in a year.
Great. So why don't we talk about the scorecard? Because I know that, like, again, he works with a company called EOS, which is one of the, the most prominent business consulting agencies in the world. And he's one of the top reps there. So I want to talk about, let's talk about the scorecard, where someone who's, maybe making 50, 100, 250 grand, somewhere right there, breaking the 6-figure range or so, how can they start tracking their metrics if they're not doing it right now with ease?
So we use a software that, like, you can look at it every single week, and you're tracking these certain metrics in your business. And luckily for all you guys, Henry just gave you the metrics. He gave you everything. You have it. It's just doing it. And so a question I commonly ask, my clients and people I talk to all the time, why are you not doing the actions you need to get you where you want to go? Really deep question. Think about it. But ultimately, you can track these things. Excel, I use software with my clients. It's really cheap, but it just gets you like, what are the main metrics I need to track every single week? And why am I not doing them? Look yourself in the mirror, ask that tough question. Because when you get to the bottom of it, it could be a fear of rejection. It could be a fear of failure. It could be all these different things, but you got to break through it at some point.
So let's talk about do you think it's possible, Ryan, to go from 6 figures to 7 figures without tracking like your metrics at all?
I work with business owners who, and again, I work with business owners in all industries. So it really depends. Some people accidentally fall into the 7-figure range, but after that, it's like sheer muscle and they're trying to will their way through it rather than, why don't I just think about working smarter? And then I have more time to myself, more time to go prospect even further and then bring on other people. I think it would be very, very challenging to get into the 7-figure mark without tracking these metrics. Ultimately, everyone, tracking these metrics is going to save you time. You're not going to be wandering around. I remember when I first started, my business, I had no idea. I was just wandering aimlessly. Henry gave you the things you need to be doing. It's just we need to do them.
Well, just curious, what have you found that has worked when it comes to tracking metrics? What have you found in the most successful way, like a testimonial as an example of a client who wasn't tracking, then started tracking, and what was their result?
HVAC client, they've been on the journey now with me for about a year. Coming into this, they had absolutely no idea what their marketing funnel looked like at all. No clue. Family-owned business, 20, 30 years. So basically they didn't know what it cost to acquire a customer. They didn't know anything. And eventually, after the year went by, we started tracking the actions that they needed to take on the marketing side and how many leads would generate, how many leads do you need to get how many pieces of closed business, and then what would that do for revenue? And so now at this point, they literally just handed their marketing guy, hey, we need 293 leads or whatever to hit our goal, or whatever the number was, to hit our goal for the year. What would that cost? That's it. And now they know exactly how much money they put into the machine to get back out. It's crazy. And now what they can go do is leverage money to then put back into the machine to generate them more revenue. Lucky for you guys, you have the actions and your time is free, which is awesome. The time you spend is cost that's going right back into your pocket where, many other people have to pay for that.
So let's talk about as a salesperson individually, right? You had brought up that it can be as simple as tracking metrics on an Excel document and just tracking that metrics. Obviously, we talked about calls, conversations, leads, starter leads, appointment set, appointments conducted, starter offers, traditional offers from traditional buyers, how many referrals that you gave and how many you asked for. Have you found that, if someone were to start tracking that metric, what do they use the data for now? Let's just say I started tracking it for 30, 60, 90 days through this data. Now what can I do?
So you're going to get a really good insight into how you're performing. So you're going to look 30 days back, 60 days back, 90 days back and say, all right, well, if I set 20, I'm making up numbers here. If I'm setting 20 appointments a week, you're going to start to see patterns and trends develop. And then you can actually make an influence on, well, my closing rate's about this, or based on how many calls I make, I close this much business. So then, oh shit, well, for me to get to my goal, I need to double the input. It's all about the input. And I know Henry is keen on that because ultimately that's all this is. It's input. How much input can you put in to get the output that you want? And for me, what I work a lot with business owners on is, what output do you want? Where are you going? Are you trying to build a 7-figure business? Are you trying to build an 8-figure business? Do you want to make $200,000? You want to make 700? What's the end goal and when? And that'll dictate your actions.
And I love how you keep saying this. And guys, I hope you're paying attention to this card because it's really, really important, which is you focus on where you want to go, right? If you want to make 100 grand, you can obviously add a 0 depending on what your goals are, but then you just divide out the numbers, right? If I want to make $100,000, my average commission check is X, right? If your average commission check right now is 10 grand, right? That means you have to do 10 sales, right? And then how many appointments did it take, or how many contracts did it take to get the 10 sales? How many appointments did it take to get those contracts? How many leads did it take to get the appointments? And you just slowly back it out into how many calls you have to make on a very regular basis. It can be that simple. Now, what's interesting, Ryan, is what have you found for somebody who goes okay, well, I want to make $1 million a year this year, right? As an example, I want to make $1 million. And they start doing the numbers and they realize that it's not something that they can personally do, they themselves, right? It's such a large number that they are coming up with. What would you recommend for them? If you're working with a company and they go oh, I want to do X number, I want to do 10 million, we've never done 10 million before. And this number that I'm coming with, the amount of calls I want to make or the amount of leads I want to generate is so big. What would you recommend for them?
I think the first thing is you need more people. There's no way. So one, you have to turn into more of a leader and a coach to your people, especially as you start to hit those bigger numbers. And it all depends on what your goals are, obviously. So if it's 10 million, how many people do you need? How many calls can they make per week in addition to how many calls you need to make per week? So then, for my client who has 300 agents, what are the actions that all 300 agents need to take? And what's the total number of calls made for the entire agency? And so when you figure that out, and now the hard part is holding people accountable. Like ultimately, hey guys, we all want to go here. We're a team and we all want to be generating this much business annually. All right, how do we get there? And you have to become more of a leader and a coach and help them through this process. Mm-hmm. And you have to want to do that. 100%. Not everybody wants to do that. And that there's a huge point there. When you start getting into this, like, yeah, the money can be great when you start adding more people. You have to want to coach people through these things. Just like someone's coached you, just like Henry's coaching all of you through this as well. It's the same concept. But you have to do it internally for your team.
What I love that he said, and I remember, like, this is how I think through things, right? Which is not just what am I capable of, but is what can I create a team to be capable of? Because it's like, okay, yeah, it's at an extra $100,000 a year in income. Might just be taking your minimum standard from here to here, right? Like it could be that simple. But also for some of you who go, I don't want to stop at $100,000. I want to make an extra $1 million. To make an extra $1 million is really just the same simplicity of numbers. Well, okay, well, I'm making this many calls now, which equates to this much money. If I want to make this much money, I need to make this many calls, and maybe it's impossible for you to make 5,000 calls a day, or at least that was the way I thought about it. And then I realized, wait a second, it's impossible maybe for Henry to make 5,000 calls a day. But what can I do? How can I create a team, an organization that can do 5,000 calls a day with ease? And it's the same simplicity of you building your team in any direction, right? Of you scheduling appointments. Maybe it's not just you, it's building the organization around you to scale up to that point. What would you say is also in regards to processes, not just tracking now, let's switch over to processes and systems. What are some processes and systems that are like non-negotiables in any business?
So every business, so I work with all different industries, so I get to see literally everything. It's really fun. So, but in the boiled down version, there's a marketing process, there's a sales process, there's an operations process, and certain specific industries, there's finance, all of these different things that you have to do as a business owner. And as your team grows, like Henry just mentioned, well, again, your role turns into more of a coach, more of a leader. You need to document these processes, and then you need people to actually want to do them. A lot of the times, and I deal with all different types of businesses, a lot of the times, business owners and salespeople are cowboys. They just do whatever they want. They're like, I don't need a process. Yeah, you do. But a lot of the times, they don't want to follow the process. And the whole point of a process is it's the best and fastest way to do it. Cheapest, best, most efficient way to do it. And everyone's energy should be focused on how do we make this as simple as possible. And ultimately that's what you're trying to create for your team. And what Henry's done years and years of research, and what you can leverage from him is he's done it. He's been there. He knows the best and fastest way. He knows the best and fastest process in his industry. He knows it. So that's something that like you don't have to go and do that work. And it applies to marketing and sales and operations. But ultimately, like you turn into more of a leader and a coach as your team starts to grow, where you're not the ones that are actually doing the work. You're more managing the process and making sure people are following it based on those scorecard metrics.
So let's just break down what you said, Ryan. So he's specifically talking about the file flow, right? Which is from lead generator or even lead list. We'll go all the way back to lead list to closing, right? And then post closing, which is saying, do you actually have a step-by-step process from how you pull your lead list? Who pulls the lead list? Guys, I have a VA that I pay $4 an hour to pull a lead list for me. Right? It doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be you. You can literally go, hey, watch Henry's videos, and I want you to pull a lead list just like Henry does. They will pull the lead list, and then you're going to teach them, hey, upload it into Mojo, which is exactly what we just talked about. You're going to upload it for me. You're going to name it for me. You're going to walk them through the entirety of the process all the way. So all you have to do is prospect the lead list. And then the cool part is that then you can even teach them saying, hey, when I get a lead, it's going to go into this system. I want you to follow up on my leads for me. Send automated emails for me. You can literally schedule out emails and text messages in your CRM system. And as you're generating this lead, now the next step is you've gotten that lead. Now you have to submit an offer on it. You could talk to your VA and say, hey, can you draft a letter of intent for me with these terms? Here's my template. Can you draft it with these additional terms? Your VA can do that and send it on your behalf for $4 an hour, people. Doesn't have to cost you $60,000 a year for an assistant. They can send out your emails. Hey, I want to do an email blast. I just got this new deal. I want to send it to, an email blast to all my buyers. Cool. Your VA can do that for $4 an hour. You send it out to a bunch of my buyers. Hey, here's the email list I want you to send it to. And if anybody responds, I want you to star it if they have any interest. They can do that for you in your email. And then once you get a deal on a contract, you can literally hire people or teams on a per transaction basis for a few $100 at closing to handle your transaction for you, so you don't really need to be that hands-on. Do you have a process for the entirety of the file flow from lead list to closing? And if you don't, how much time do you think per week, Ryan, that someone should be spending on a monthly basis on their business, not in the business?
And this totally depends on where you're at. If you get to the point where you're like high 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures, absolutely not. You shouldn't be working in the business at all. But I have clients who are in the 7 figures who are like, they're in parts of the business. But it really depends on it also depends on what you want.
So let's go through the scales, right? Let's say I'm making 50 to 200 grand right now. Okay, I'm on the low end of the scale. I just got started. I'm a few years in the business. How much time should I be spending in the business versus on the business? What's the ratio?
I'd say probably 75, maybe 80-20. Because depending on your financial situation, you might not have many expenses. It really depends. But
you're saying, so hold on, 80 in, 20% on. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying at the beginning of someone's career, you should be spending 80% of your time in the business, 20% on the business, which I agree with, which basically means that you should be spending nearly almost an hour a day on the business and 80% of your time in the business, right? 7-ish hours in it, an hour on it, right? A day. Now let's just say now I'm making several 6 figures. I'm making 250, 500 grand a year or more. I'm in the multi 6-figure range. How much time should I spend in the business versus on the business?
For this business, it could be as low as 25% in the business.
Love it.
It could, depending on what you're looking for, because most of the time, this is all high majority, it's sales and marketing.
Yeah, I agree. Which is, so when you're spending time in the business, let's break this down. As you start creeping up this ladder of income, you're going to spend more and more time on the business versus in it. And when you're in it, you're spending it on, specifically, you just said sales and marketing. So while you're in the business, you're going to only be focused on sales and marketing activities. And then when you're on the business, you're working on what specifically?
So depending on how many people you have, you're coaching them, you're holding them accountable to make sure they're making the calls. You're giving them the resources they need to be able to do what they need to do. You're looking at different softwares. You're out, hey, people like Henry who've done this for years. What are you doing? What have you done? You're out networking, it's all sales and marketing. And then you try to get yourself out of the operations, you get yourself out of the bookkeeping, the finance stuff, the simple stuff. And really all your time is just making deals.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, I'm just going to try to break this down for us. So what I'm hearing you say is that as you creep up this ladder and you're getting to the multi 6 figures, touching 7, right? You're going to be spending now, again, 25% of time specifically doing sales activities, right? Like making your prospecting calls, right? Doing all your marketing activities, which is like shooting content. I shoot content, right? Like, and then my team handles the rest of it, where I'm doing all these sales and marketing activities. I'm negotiating deals. I'm trying to put deals in contract. I'm spending my highest dollar per activities when I'm in the business on those specific activities. The on the business activity, you're just talking about recruiting more great talent, making sure they have everything they need to be successful, constantly networking with other high-level individuals, learning what works from their processes and systems so that I can implement it in mine. Looking at my org chart and saying, what type of piece am I missing? Which staff am I missing? What operational pieces am I missing here so that my team can go to the next level and the next level and the next level? Is that what I'm hearing right now?
100%. A lot of what I do is about structure wise, where do we want to go in the next 6 to 12 months, revenue wise? And then who do we need? So we start and we build the structure first, not the people you currently have in your business. The people that got you to where you are today may not be the people that get you to where you want to go. 100%. Very, very crucial mistake I see a lot of business owners making. You learn the hard way eventually. But
so what does that mean, by the way? Let's break that. What does that actually mean? The people who are with you today might not be the people with you tomorrow. What does that mean?
Basically, there's the concept called hitting the ceiling. You can hit it in 3 different ways, really, as a business, as a department, and as an individual. A lot of the times, so I ran an electrical prefab shop. Our COO at one point, we were throwing work at him. And at some point he capped out, raised his hand, and he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And we're like, oh, what the hell? what do you want to do? He's like, I just want to go be a project manager again. He capped out and he didn't want to grow anymore. So some people have certain limits of where they want to grow, and others will run through a wall until the end of time, which means you can't plan your business around them. You have to build your business and see if that person fits into the role that you need them to fit into.
Love it.
So not placing them into a role where they're like, I think they'll fit. We have to be intentional about our structure and then put people that'll fit into that structure.
So well said, which is like you have a puzzle and you're putting pieces in it and seeing if it fits. Yep. Right. And then seeing if that's a great fit or not. Because like, and what's crazy and say that we're going to talk about this last thing. And then obviously I know you're a super busy guy and we got a bunch of other guest speakers I want to have on here. Let's talk about this last piece. Cause a lot of these are solo entrepreneurs, which are, again, they're looking to make their first 6 figures in the business. If you're going to talk to an entrepreneur right now, who's like, man, oh man, I want to freaking rock it out of the gate. I'm hungry. I'm doing everything possible to make this work. I'm on this training right now. And I'm like, I'm hands up. I'm like, I'm coachable. Ryan, what like 1 or 2 or 3 things would you say go out and do right now?
It's action. Literally, there's no other word but action. You can think about making the phone calls. You can think about talking to people. Action. Just take action. If you take relentless action for the next 6 to 12 months, you'll be a completely different person. I mean, Henry and I will know we were both doing 75 hard right now. I'm a different person as a result of it. And it's changed my thought process on, I just need to do like little things every single day and it adds up. Number 1, action. 100%.
Thank you, Ryan, for coming on. We appreciate you so much. And obviously we'll catch up together. Thank you, Ryan, for coming on. I appreciate that. We're going to get back to the session. So thank you so much, Ryan. Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on. Ryan's a great friend and he's worked with a lot of very, very successful business owners. So hope you guys got a lot of value out of the systems and processes we talked about today. Let's get back to the share screen. Give me 1 second. Pillar number 5, increasing your referral network. Who here would like to get more referrals? Who here would like to work a little bit easier and get a lot more referrals? Is it just me or would you like more referrals as well? So what we're going to talk about now is exploding your network. And obviously you're only one connection away from the life you deserve, the life you desire, the life you want is only literally one connection away. I mean, I can tell you time after time after time in my life about incredible individuals where within literally, I'm not even kidding you. I had one person who came into my life who came to me through a cold call. We met through a cold call that I had made. And within 24 months of that phone call, I had made over $500,000 from one client. That person to this date has made me millions of dollars and has introduced me into other people, one of which is actually going to be speaking at the very end of this. He introduced me to this individual and me and him have invested in millions and millions of dollars worth of real estate deals together. Very appreciative of that one connection. One connection from a cold call, people. Right? One person from a cold call. So I have a special guest of mine who I want to bring on in just a moment here. And we're going to, we'll be talking about how to explode your network in just a minute. But these are the types of professional partners that I have today, right? Like I want you to take a mental picture of this, which is it doesn't have to be what you think it is, right? Like professional partners can come in all different shapes and sizes, right? This is coming from like commercial lenders. Other investors can refer you business, right? Think about the commercial lenders who are talking to people who are buying properties all day long. How many commercial lenders do you know that are, in your network and are supporting you in your business? Your investors, are they giving you the deals? Like, listen, guys, here's a really key question. When's the last time you called up one of your investors and say, hey, when you say no to a deal, what are you doing with that deal if it's off market? Send me the deal, right? If you have an investor saying, hey, they just said no to a deal, send me the deal. Maybe I can sell it and we can all make some money. Other agents who do residential or commercial in other areas, finding 1031 companies who are already working with clients and they need to find a property, they can use you as the agent. Contractors who are working on these properties all the time. Guys, connect with contractors where you can refer them business, they can send you business. Insurance brokers are just the same. Hey, they maybe just had a huge insurance claim. You could be talking with public insurance adjusters down at the bottom. Their accountants, they're constantly looking to move money for tax purposes. How many accountants and how close are you with those accountants? Real estate attorneys, divorce attorneys. How many divorce attorneys do you know? Because sometimes they have to sell all their commercial assets. Title companies, financial advisors, guys, EOS consultants like Ryan, they were working with large business owners. Ryan works with dozens and dozens of business owners in the local market who are all looking to save money on taxes and would love to invest in real estate. HVAC companies who are looking to, who are growing their businesses because of people like Ryan, and they're growing their businesses so much they need a new building, right? They can be a fantastic person to connect with, right? Local business owners, like we just mentioned, they're constantly looking to move and shift and possibly buy larger buildings or smaller buildings, or even sell the building that they're in and looking to retire, right? So many different options. So without without further ado, I'd like to invite a good friend of mine, John, to come on here. So if you can come on mute or come off mute, that would be super appreciative. John is a humanitarian. He's a coach specializing in growth, leadership, and mission-driven businesses. He's accomplished some incredible things, and he's also one of the fastest. He has one of the fastest growing EXP organizations globally, and this guy knows how to build a freaking network. So, John, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can actually see your beautiful face. Give me 1 second. Cool. What is up, my man? Thank you for tuning in.
What is up? What is up? Man, you bring some serious energy. I love this.
I appreciate it. Well, I know you're going to bring the same. So obviously, we talk about building a network. We were just on a Zoom call recently, where we really hit it off, and we're talking about everything we're going to be creating together. I want to talk to these people, though. What we have here is a bunch of powerhouse realtors making 50 to 250, some more, some a little bit less, and they really want to just explode their networks. What is a few key things that we can start talking about today to give them some value?
Yeah, the first thing I want to share is that, those slides, the slide you just had up with all those different people, there are so many different types of people that can help you build. There's so many people that want to collaborate with you. Everybody on that slide, they want to collaborate with you on one way or another. So this is not like a cold call. This is not like, hey, will you please do business with me? No. This is like a business conversation, right? They want to do business with you. They are already warm and open to the idea of being receptive. Now, that being said, they've got a lot of other people they could be doing business with too. The first thing that I want to share is how to differentiate yourself in a major way. So one of the keys, one of the things that I got involved in about a decade ago, and one of the things that's made a huge transformation in my life is help connecting the dots to why should someone care? Why should I care about Cole? Why should I care about Brandon? Why should I care about Luke, right? I got all these people I could do business with. What makes them special? And you might go to your value proposition. You might be like, well, I'm smarter than other people, or I'm this, or I'm that, right? I do this one thing really well. And that's all good. You should definitely have a value proposition. But what will stand out more than anything is raise your hand. I'm just curious if you hit that reaction button, whatever. If you're on this call and you're paying attention, throw your hand up if you'd like to do more good in the world. A little bit of good, more good, whatever. Yeah. So here's the deal. You see all those hands go up? That was pretty much everybody. And I have spoken in front of rooms of 5,000 to 10,000 people. And every time I do that exercise live, every single person raises their hand. And if you've ever tried to volunteer at a soup kitchen before, what you might realize is doing good is actually a little more complicated than it should be. Like, it'd be great if tomorrow I just wanted to go down and volunteer at the soup kitchen, except for the fact that they have a list and they have a process and they have a background check and all this other shit. And at the end of the day, I can't just immediately go take action. You can find something that you're passionate about in your community. It can be your little league. It can be the Boys and Girls Club. You can say that, you know what, I have a really big goal this year. I want to help 10 people buy a commercial property. I have a really big goal this year. I want to help people invest $100 million in the real estate market. I have a big goal, right? Whatever your goal is, right? And then I want you to tag something at the end of it, because that goal doesn't mean anything to anybody. That's not something people can rally behind. What people can rally behind is saying, and when I do, I'm going to buy new sporting equipment for the local Boys and Girls Club because I went there as a kid and it changed my life. And I don't think that the boys and girls down there should have to grow up with crappy old basketballs and old sporting equipment. It could be anything that you're passionate about. We drilled wells in Africa. We drilled, the biggest thing I could think of a couple of years ago when I wanted to set off on this journey was I hosted a big event kind of like this one. And I wanted to raise enough money to build one well in Africa and bring clean water to about 2,000 people. And when I was done, in about 45 minutes, we were able to raise $37,000, and we drilled 4 wells in Africa, and we brought clean water for the first time to about 10,000 people. And to watch children drink clean water for the first time ever in their life, and to be able to facilitate that, was one of the most powerful experiences of my life. And it was also for all the people who contributed. And we all collectively together were bonded over that moment. And we were able to share with our networks what we were up to and what we were doing. And so whatever it is, whether it's sex trafficking or clean water or Boys and Girls Club or Little League or whatever, I encourage you to find something of significance that you can tie your goal to, so that people understand that when they work with you, when they partner with you, when they network, when they collaborate, that it's not, they're not referring you. They're not like, oh, Henry's a great negotiator. Do you guys believe Henry's a great negotiator? Like, I do. I think Henry's probably a badass negotiator. Guess what? That's Henry's job. That is not a reason to work with him. That's not a reason to refer him, right? That doesn't make him special. You guys should all be great negotiators. When Henry's changing the world by doing work in the community, that's something I'll drop my knife and fork for at the fancy restaurant, right? The fancy steakhouse, and run 3 tables over because I heard somebody mention the word real estate. And I'm like, oh my God, you got to meet Henry. He's changing the world. Like, this is a huge deal. So first is build a mission-driven business that is greater than yourself, where you can connect your goal to something that people can get involved in. Because here's the deal. When you get your network involved, when they understand that when they work with you, that great things happen in the world, then you get to go do great things in the world. And when you do, you get to take pictures and videos and all of this content. When I like to say, when you do the work that has no end, you create content and conversations that have no end. Anybody ever feel weird about reaching out to their database or calling their friends or talking to people, right? We don't want to be salesy. We don't want to be weird like that. Well, when you're calling them for a purpose, when you're calling them to change lives and save lives, and kids are dying from drinking dirty water, all of a sudden you feel like you've got on a bulletproof vest. You'll call anybody, because what are they going to do? They're going to hang up on you. They're going to be like, no, John, I don't want to save little kids. Like, okay, that's fine. You're a fucking asshole. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to cuss, but like literally,
we're from
like,
Jersey,
you're
people.
We
can cuss.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So like, you're a horrible person if that's the case. And so what you're able to do at the end of it is you close the loop. So you guys are familiar with dopamine, right? Dopamine is the thing that we get from social media. Dopamine is like this toxic chemical that's ruining all of our lives. It's screwing up our kids. It's causing them to be depressed and all this other stuff. Dopamine is the thing that happens when somebody hits the like button on your Facebook post. Yeah, dopamine is not the drug you're looking for. The drug you're looking for is serotonin. Serotonin is the drug that is produced when you actually do good in the world, when you actually create impact and long-lasting happiness. That's the drug that makes you feel good for the long term. You, my friend, can become everyone's happiness drug dealer by giving them a place to do more good in the world, by making your business a for-profit charity and tying it to something that matters. You give them a way, just like all of you said. You all said you want to do more good in the world. You're now making it easy for them to do good in the world by just simply supporting you. And then when the good happens, you send them all a postcard and you put it on social media and you tag everybody and you thank them and you send them something in the mail and you give them pictures and videos and rewards. And you say, because of you, because of your partnership, because of your contribution, these things happened. And now that person gets to walk around all day long full of serotonin, extremely happy, long-term, because you are their happiness drug dealer. That is extremely powerful. The second thing I want to share with you is you need to teach people how to refer you. People want to refer you. They don't know how. So if somebody were to refer Cole right now, I bet Cole would be like, give out my business card. Tell him to call me. At the end of the day, nobody wants to talk to a salesperson. Nobody's going to give out your business card. They're going to give your business card. The person's not going to call you. It's not going to work. So you have to teach everyone in your world that you expect one introduction per year. Not all the deals. You guys all ask them for all their business. You ask everybody in your network to give you all their business. They can't do that. It's not quantifiable. I cannot give you all my business, but I can give you one introduction. And that one introduction needs to take place by three-way text message. So I want you to tell everybody in your database, hey, Cole, I want to do some real big things in the world. I've got a goal to help this many families make a move, or to help this many people invest, or to change these lives this way. And when I do, the Boys and Girls Club are going to be taken care of. Now, could I count on you? I want to work by referral. Can I count on you for one introduction? And Cole's going to be like, dude, absolutely. One introduction. That sounds easy. Of course I'll do that. To support the kids, of course I'll do that. You're say, great, Cole. I'm guessing that if you were to introduce me right now, what you would do is you would give my number to somebody. Is that correct? They're going to say, yeah, I'd give your number. And I'll be like, here's the problem. They'll never call me. And they'll end up with a bad partner in a weak moment. They're going to end up with somebody who's going to take advantage of them because they didn't call me. I'll look out for your people. So instead, could you send a three-way text message? Could you introduce us via three-way text message? It's kind of like introducing two people at a party. If me and Henry were sitting at the bar and I was like, hey, have you met my friend Cole? You guys are really going to get along about XYZ. And then I went to talk to somebody else. Henry and Cole would continue that conversation for at least 3 minutes because I introduced them. They feel an obligation to my relationship with each of them to continue that conversation. And the truth is, all you ever need is 3 minutes to prove whether you're the worst person in the world or the best. And if you can't win that relationship over within 3 minutes, then you don't know what you're doing. And so the only way that you're going to get an at-bat is to create a habit where your people know to introduce you by three-way text message. If you do nothing other than that one thing today, it will change your entire life. If you read the book Tribes by Seth Godin, you'll find that the average person you have about 150 strong ties. So 150 strong ties is like me and Henry. We're buddies. We know each other. But everyone on this call is now a weak tie. I know you all through Henry. And so if you do the math on how many people Henry knows and how many people I know, if you do that across all 150 people that you know, you're actually 1 degree of separation from about 22,000 people. 22,000 people are all the people you ever needed in your entire life. And they all exist on the other side of the 150 people you know well. So all you have to do is teach those 150 people to connect you to their 150 people. And you will have a database of 22,000 people that can become raving fans and advocates of what you're up to. It is a very simple process. It will change your life in a massive, massive way. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is the power of the internet. You guys, there are 8 billion people out there. People are lonely. People are sad. People are depressed. People are looking for friendship. People are looking for connection. If you send 100 DMs today, the book by Seth Godin is called Tribes. If you send 100 DMs today and you say, hey, will you buy my product? You'll get 100 people who are like, F off. But if you go and like people's content, anytime somebody posts on the internet, they're saying, look at me. Give me attention. Please validate my experience and what I'm doing. If you go and like people's content, if you engage in their comments, if you pay them a compliment and you send them a DM and say, I like what you're up to, and you build a genuine relationship and you take it like a 4 or 5 step process. Like I want you to take everyone in your life. I want you to take all your prospects, everybody on social media, and I want you to give them a relationship score 1 to 10. 10 is like your best friends. It was your best man in your wedding. A 1 is like an internet stranger you've never spoken to before. Every single time you interact with these people, I want your goal to be to move them up 1 notch. Do not try and move a 2 to a 10. Do not try and move a 1 to a 7. Move a 2 to a 3. Move a 3 to a 4. And systematically move each relationship up the relationship ladder 1 step at a time. If you do this with a large quantity of people, you will have a massive, massive network. And there are going to be people who do not want to talk to you. There are going to be people who don't like you. There are going to be people who say racist stuff. There's going to be people who don't resonate with your message. There's going to be all kinds of people that don't matter. Get rid of all of them. It does not matter because there are thousands and thousands of people behind them. Continue to work through relationships until you have enough relationships that you never need to go make another friend. Because I swear to you, if you just nurture 150 high quality people who share your core values, who align with your mission, who believe in what you're doing, who want to do more good in the world, who have the same energy as you and want to do an energy exchange and they want to talk, you guys are never going to have to ask for business ever again. You're going to be the busiest you've ever been in your entire life. So create something bigger than yourself, tie it into a mission, become people's happiness drug dealer, teach people how to refer you, lean on the power of a 3-way text, fill up your bucket with people who want to talk, move them 1 step at a time through a deeper relationship with you, and then love the hell out of the people who get into your inner circle. And you will never, ever, ever need to ask for business ever again.
Mic drop. Boom. Oh man, this is so much value right here. Drop some love in the chat, guys, if you guys enjoyed that. John, before you go today, because obviously I know you're super busy, got a bunch of other things going on. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you for coming on here. Thank you for inspiring and lighting up this group of people. We appreciate you. Thank you for inspiring me, man. And obviously looking forward to accomplishing all the amazing things we're going to be accomplishing together.
The last thing I wanted to say is I was a little nervous when you introduced me as a guy with a big network at EXP. And what I want you to know is like, I never talk about that. That's not what this is about. This is about helping the people on this call grow their business. I'm not here to try and recruit anybody, neither are you. But I want you to know that the power of that network is insane. I have personally partnered with 35 agents and I have over 850 agents around the country in my network. And so if anyone on this call is ever curious or wants to talk to somebody or just wants to know more information, please reach out to Henry or myself. We'd be glad to share that with you. But I hope you got a ton of value today. And thanks again for having me, Henry. And it was a real pleasure. I hope you guys get a ton of value from today. It sounds like a really amazing event.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. I'm just mind blown, right? I mean, just so much amazing stuff to talk about from John, which I mean, I'm going to rewatch this over and over and over again. And right now I do have another special guest I wanted to introduce you guys to in just a quick second. I just want to share my screen. Let's dive into pillar 6. Pillar number 6 is invest in deals. Now that you learn how to increase your average sales price, learn to increase your average commission, you learn how to increase your commitment levels and the levels of standards, you're increasing your referral network. Number next is taking that money in the deals you're closing and invest in some deals, because my mantra, I've been saying this for a while, I've been telling it to my teams, we sell to buy real estate. We don't sell until we die. We sell to buy, not sell until you die. Because it's important to note that when you're looking at investing in deals, active income will make you rich, but creating equity will create wealth. Active income makes you rich, but equity creates wealth. So if you want to become wealthy over a long period of time, so you can be like John and help a lot of amazing people along the way, right? And create wells in Africa. I mean, just this guy's changing the freaking world one person at a time. And it's amazing. So if you want to do more good like that, creating more wealth for yourself and for those around you is going to be one way to get there. And it's talking about how to, and we're going to be talking about this with my dear friend in just a second. So we're going to introduce him in a moment. But talking about these things, right? Because it can be this simple. finding a great buyer and operator, which is you find a great buyer while you're doing your prospecting calls. We just talked about this, right? You're making your prospecting calls. And what happens here is that you're going to, along the way, find a few fantastic people to partner with. I told you about the guy that I cold called who ended up, making me $500,000 over the next 24 months. That was an investor who I've invested a lot of money with, who I'm now an LP, right? A limited partner in some of his deals. So I found a way to partner with him. Number two is along the way of you're finding those great buyers, you're going to hopefully come across some great deals. We talked about prospecting. We talked about how to find the lead list, what to prospect. You're going to come across some good deals. And instead of making a 2%, 3%, 5%, or 6% commission, roll in some of that commission into the deal. So instead of taking 100 grand, make 25 and take the 75 and throw it in, right? Or whatever percentage you want to. And when you're doing this, think long-term, because these long-term investments are going to be the reason why you're able to retire, and your competition is going to be part of the latter group, which has to sell real estate until the day they die. You guys all see these real estate agents that are 60, 70, and 80 years old? You guys see these people, right, with the business card still, and they got the freaking name tag and all that shit? If you are 60, 70, or 80 years old, and you're not selling real estate because you just love the industry, but because you have to, you did something wrong. And I'm here to share with you, over a few year period of time, if you look at number 5 here, if you do one deal a year, you roll commission into one deal a year, for the next 10 years, it's nearly a guaranteed way to retire, or at least have the option to. Who here would like to make a lot more passive income? Is it just me? Yeah, I think all of us would. And it starts with just learning about how to invest in deals. So without any further ado, I wanted to have some time here. I want to introduce my friend David Weinstein. He's not only a top commercial lender, has his own a commercial real estate brokerage company. He's also an investor and a dear friend. We own a lot of real estate together. David, thank you for coming on here, my friend. If you can come off mute, I'd really appreciate it so I can find your beautiful face here. Give me 1 second.
I'm right here, Henry. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for having me. It's really
of course.
Great group. And thank you, John, who I got to, I merited to see a little bit of the end of your presentation. Really blew me out of the water. So thank you.
Fantastic, guy. So what I want to talk about today, David, we have a bunch of fantastic residential commercial agents on the group here who are all looking to invest in more real estate, either their first deal or their next deal. So let's talk about how do we invest into some more deals together. Let's do some fundamental work. We'll talk about the fundamentals, and then obviously we can talk about interest rates, where they're going, and what you see for the future.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So as Henry said, we're partners. Currently, we're good friends, know each other for many years. I'm coming out of the hedge fund world, ran a lending hedge fund, about $150 million fund. I learned a lot of what not to do and a lot of what to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. One very important thing is like Henry said, you need to decide if you want to become rich or wealthy. And real estate is a slow game. It really is. And anyone who tells you that they're, buying real estate and becoming, getting crazy cash flow is probably lying, or they're, buying it fantastically well. The people that I've seen make a lot of money in this business were the people who bought and held and slow and steady. And it took 20 years, but they ended up with a net worth in the hundreds of millions of dollars, starting from very little. So we can look at certain fundamentals of what you should be looking at. Definitely, if you're not a experienced real estate and you're just kind of dipping your toes into the water, you probably want to be looking at coming in as an LP. Henry, is everybody here familiar with the LP-GP structure?
Let's talk about that just quickly, because I want to share with you guys, for those of you who want to invest in real estate, some of you might become something called an LP. Obviously, David can go more into that, because this is like just talking about like where you don't actually have to manage the deal at all, right? I don't like managing. David and I don't like managing our own deals. We to talk about this all the time. But becoming an LP can be a safer, simpler route for the large majority of individuals. So go ahead and you can dive into that.
Yeah, sure. So let's start with that. GP stands for general partner. LP stands for limited partner. Okay. And those are technical legal terms that you'll find on operating agreements, which are essentially the contracts between an investor and a real estate syndicator as far as ownership and equity splits and so on. The job of general partner is to find the property, to vet it, to do all of the due diligence, to manage or hire management, to find financing, to close, and to make sure that the continued operation is a success, right? So that means bringing up, the value of the property, dealing with the rentals, dealing with problems, and so on. So they're essentially the hands-on day-to-day manager. The job of the LP is essentially to bring cash. All right, that's it. That's it. You bring your money and you go to sleep. And if you partnered with a good GP, who's also sometimes referred to as an operator, all right, if you partner with a good operator, you basically just get dividends. It's kind of like investing in the stock market. You buy Apple stocks. You don't have to be busy with their new product development. That's not your business. So that's essentially the same thing. I recommend getting into the market as an LP, reading the deals, talking to the GP. Usually they will give you the time of day when they're looking to raise capital. If they don't, you may have some questions as to their capabilities. But essentially, you may want to learn by asking questions, but not by actively managing. There are just so many pitfalls along the way that you can avoid by learning on somebody else's experience. So that would be kind of my recommendation.
Yeah. And I think that we've talked about this where guys, think about it. Let's just say you're doing a $2 million deal and you can make even 1%, right? Or even, 2%, like a simple commission that's very easy to get, even if hypothetically you're doing it with another broker. So I'm saying this is a simple, easy commission, a 2% deal on a $2 million property. That's $40,000. Some of you might be in a financial position where maybe you don't need 40 grand, but you desperately need like 10 grand right now to pay your bills. So what you can do is that you can take 10 or 15K and then roll in $25,000 in commissions into the deal, where now that 25,000 can start earning a preferential return, which we'll talk about in just a second. And on top of that, you can earn equity in this deal, which maybe turns into, instead of 25K, into 30K, 40K, 50K, $100,000 over a 5 or 10 year period of time, while you're still earning the cash flow in the meantime, especially if you really believe in the deal. Right. So, David, I'd love to talk about some key things like interest rates and walking through the next steps of underwriting a deal. How do I know I have a good deal?
So that's a very obviously important fundamental thing. You got to make sure you're buying a good deal and you're not just buying anything. Number one key, and we can, Henry, do you
I have your spread. I have your spreadsheet if you want me to.
All right, let's pull up the spreadsheet and I'll try to play with it from here, see if that works. All right. So if you head over to the tab called Rent Roll, scroll down, you'll see, and this is just a sample I just wrote up, so you'll have, various unit counts, and you'll have a tenant in there, you'll have lease type, is this commercial, is this residential, is this triple net, or, whatever the case is. But what's important for us is to look at the rent, right? So you have your monthly rent is $1,000, again, using super simple numbers, $12,000 a year, carries down to $72,000 gross. Okay, that's your gross income, simple calculation. Now, if you jump back to the loan underwriting page, you're going to, okay, now let's take it from the top. Your $72,000 rent roll carries over to your rental income, right? That is your gross number that theoretically comes in every month. And then we go for a collection of vacancies. So every loan, you got to put in a vacancy factor. 5% is standard for residential. Commercial gets higher. Office right now, they're underwriting at 20 to 30% vacancy. But you got to put in a vacancy factor. Which is insane. And office is really rough right now for that reason. This vacancy factor, you might say, well, the building is full. I'm buying a full building. Why do I need to put in a vacancy? It's at 100% occupancy. The answer is because you're not looking at this year, you're looking at your entire future, okay? Your entire future ownership of this building. Tenants will leave. There's going to be a turnover. There are going to be months where you don't have a tenant, so you might have 1 month of unit 1 being vacant. You might have 1 month of unit 3 being vacant. Overall, the standard universal language understood by banks, understood by buyers is 5% vacancy, unless the market demands differently. If you're going to, get into nitty gritty, some areas you'll have lower vacancies, some areas you'll have higher vacancies. This is kind of a good middle of the road number. So what this does is you knock off $3,600 in gross rent due to vacancy. What you can actually expect is $68,400 in effective gross income. All right. And a lot of people, especially when you're new at this business, will try to slip this one by on you. They'll be like, yeah, it's 100% occupied and this is the income and this is a great deal. You always got to put that in yourself. Vacancy is very important. Here you've got some expenses, you got taxes, you got insurance, you got water, sewer, electric repairs, maintenance, management. Also, always got to be at 5%, and so on. This will tally up your total expenses, and this will subtract your expenses from your gross income. Yeah, I see somebody asking if you can get a copy. Absolutely. This is a great resource, and you can plug in, all of your deals. All right. So what you have here in E34 is your NOI. All right. You might be familiar with that term, net operating income, a very important number. And this number is the most important number you're going to look at when you buy real estate. What does it actually return to you net of expenses? All right. And notice this does not include any debt coverage, right? There's no mortgage payments here. And the reason for that is when real estate investors look at a deal, you look at it, it's true fundamental income fixed ratio. All right. So this is a commonly used number. You talk to anyone in the business, first question is, what's the NOI? Right? Give me the NOI, give me the income and expenses, NOI. Let's see how this carries down, just a little bit of underwriting. Let's jump to cap rate. All right, cap rate is anyone here familiar with cap rates?
Yeah.
All right, you're all realtors, are you familiar with this? Cap rates vary by region, and this cap rate will determine the value of the property, not the other way around. People in the business will often, sell a building based on cap, right? They'll say, oh, I'm selling it at a 6 cap, at a 4 cap, at an 8 cap. They won't say I'm selling it for $10 million or 883. And that is because this is the fundamental factor of any real estate deal, is what does the building produce? And back in the day, prior to COVID, and probably in 2016, we were seeing deals all day at eight caps. 8 caps were your standard number. Things got very expensive onwards in 2018, 2019, 2020. Through COVID, deals were trading at 4 caps, 3 caps. If you change the number here, just look at what happens. I'm going to change the cap rate from a 6 to a 5, and look what happens to the value. All right. So it just went up over $1 million. It was 800 and something and change, right? So 1% change in cap rate will change your value tremendously. You got to know what your cap rate is. The higher the cap rate, the lower the price, and that's better for you as a buyer. You want a fundamental return on your money. That means a return not including any debt, any financing, any interest rates. You just want to know, what is this building returning if you bought it all cash? And that is your cap rate. That means you're going to get 5% a year. If you pay $1,059,600, you're going to get 5% a year on your $1,059,600. If you paid for the building, pop it up to an 8 cap, if you half the price, you would be getting 8% return on your money. The relationship between the value and cap rate is key. You want to buy high cap rates. What happened was, let's jump into rates a little bit, and then I'll cover some of the other factors here. What happened was, as rates drop, your monthly pay here. Let's play it out. Here we have a 7% interest rate, right? So I have 7% interest rate, 30-year AM. Your monthly payment on a building, assuming you're getting a 75% loan, $500,000 loan amount, you're looking at paying $3,300 a month, 40 grand a year. Now let's just look at what happens if your rate goes to 3%. All right, keep your eye on the annual PNI. Let's change your rate to 3%, and that goes into $25,000 a year. So your monthly payment just went down significantly. What happened was, when rates were 2 and 3 and 4%, is you said, hey, I can pay much more for this building. I mean, look, heck, I'm only paying 25 grand a year, and I'm making 52 grand a year. Let me pay more. Let me pay $1 million for this building, or 800 grand for this building. Let me pay more because I can afford it. Now that is the biggest pitfall that anyone can fall into, is ignoring your cap rate and looking at your monthly payment. You're buying a fundamentally low return on your money. You're just getting tricked into buying it because you're getting cheap leverage. What happens is, commercial real estate financing typically lasts 5 years or 10 years, depending on your payment structure, and then you get a balloon payment. It gets reset. Even if you have a fixed rate, it gets reset. If you reset, if you went into this let's assume a story here, okay? You bought this in 2019 or 2020 during COVID. You were getting cheap rates, 3% rates. You said, hey, it's worth it to pay $1 million for this building because I'm still netting 12, 13 grand a year on my investment. I'll get 75%. I'll get 800 grand. I'll put in 200 grand. 12 grand, not bad. It's over 10%. What happens is you got to refi now, right? 4, 3, 4, 5 years later, you got to refi next year. Your rate's going to be 7%. And now you are paying $63,000 a year and you're only netting 52, or maybe you increase rent a little bit. You're barely covering your mortgage payment. You're losing money. Very important. Keep your eye on the ball. This is the ball. Cap rate is the ball. And you've got I would say, if you're going into a deal, look for 8 cap or higher. That's kind of my personal comfort zone. And that's kind of the average fundamental rate that we've seen in this country for 40 or 50 years.
And by the way, real quick, just want to mention, he was mentioning like all the people who had purchased properties at low caps who are now going into trouble. This is all the news that you're hearing about, right? Of all the trillions of dollars of loans that are coming due and the people that are going to come into trouble, financial turmoil, because when they're refinancing on their loans, they're underwater. This is exactly what this means, just on the grand scheme of things, right? The grand scale of much larger and larger deals nationally, internationally, right? So this is the piece to pay attention to. Now, David, let's do 2 things real quick. Let's talk about the debt coverage ratio. Like if you're looking at a deal, because I know you mentioned 8% cap rates. We're all going to look for 8% cap rates or better on your deals. I think that's incredibly smart. Let's just talk about quickly the debt coverage ratio and the yield, and then we can talk about some next steps like interest rates, about where they're headed.
This section right over here is the bank underwriting, right? Very general bank underwriting. They got the interest rate, they got the amortization schedule, you got your payments monthly and annual, and then you've got your debt coverage ratio. Debt coverage ratio, what is your annual payment to your annual NOI, or your monthly payment to your monthly NOI? Your net operating income is currently 1.34 times, or 134% of your annual P&I. Why is that important? Well, that's important because banks want you to have a little bit of cushion. They don't want your NOI to equal your monthly payment, because if taxes go up or you got some extra expense, you're underwater. So they want to have the cushion. Let's talk about what standard banks want on a multifamily building. Your standard multifamily underwrites at a 30-year amortization schedule. Now, this is not a 30-year loan. This is not a residential 30-year loan. This is the principal payment schedule. However, most commercial banks will require you to have a 5-year or max 10-year loan, which means that you're paying down on a 30-year schedule. You hit year 5, you've only paid down 5 out of 30 years, essentially, of your principal. And now you got to refi or sell in order to pay back the entire remaining principal balance of, in this case, almost, it'll be in 5 years, let's say 400 grand, right? So you got to refi or pay that back. So this is the amortization schedule. The ratio from rate to amortization schedule, we'll play around with it, and that will tell you what your debt coverage is. So your standard multifamily debt coverage is between 1.2 to 1.3%, which means the bank is willing to give you, assuming other factors are correct, like loan to value, they're willing to give you enough money so that your ratio, your debt coverage ratio is about 1.25 to 1.3, even 1.2 to 1.3. So essentially, the bank will look at loan to value. They'll cap it at typically 75 to 80%, and they'll look at debt coverage ratio, which they'll cap at about, they'll limit it to about 1.2 to 1.25. Now, look, if you set your amortization schedule to, let's say, shorter term, 25 years, right?
Which is very typical, by the way, for every other commercial type of asset class, right?
It's extremely typical, and and we don't have time here to get into the nitty gritty on the types of loans and the types of banks, but very typical, you're looking at a 25-year. If you get 25 years, that means essentially you're paying off the principal more quickly, right? Instead of over 30 years, you're now doing it over 25 years, which means every year you're paying more principal, which means your monthly and annual payments are higher, which means your ratio of debt, of payments to operating income is lower, right? So you're only at 1.18. This would not pass. So you would have to lower the loan amount, in this case, to 75% to get you above that limit. So amortization schedule is important because it increases your monthly payments. Now your interest isn't going up, but your monthly payment is going up. It's principal. The other thing is obviously interest. If interest goes down to Well, now only at 168, you're in a great place. And assuming everything else is okay, you can get much more money and you're still good. So that's how this kind of the banks look at this, and rate and amortization schedule will highly affect your ability to get financing.
So what I want to do really quickly, I'm just going to move my screen over so I can see all of everyone here. So what I want to share with you guys really fast is the following, that what David just shared with you is benchmarks, okay? It does not mean that you squeak in to barely make it over, right? You want to find something that substantially exceeds the benchmarks. An 8 cap is a benchmark. A 1.25% debt coverage ratio is a benchmark. Debt yield, like he had mentioned briefly, was, of 6, 7, 8% is a benchmark. Getting it, like all these things are benchmarks. So like what I want you to try to do is try to find the deals. Like if you really want to make a lot of money in this industry, it's not about listings being the name of the game. It's about finding unbelievable deals, because the person who has the most good deals will always make the most money. If you are a deal sourcing machine, right, and you have an unbelievable amount of good deals coming your way, you now have choice, right, of how I want to get paid on this deal. It is so easy. David, how easy is it for a bank to give a loan on a property where you have a 1.5 or 1.6% DSCR ratio? How much easier is that?
It is easy. I mean, the banks will be dying for this deal. They'll be fighting over it. They'll be lowering their own interest rates. You can get better interest rates if the deal is good, because banks internally have their own portfolio underwriting that they have to make sure that between all of their loans that are out, there's a certain ratio being averaged. So if they've done loans that are now, not great, a little bit underwater because they maybe did that in 2020, 2021 at 3%, and they know the property is not even producing enough, they will be dying because of regulators' requirements. They will be dying to get your loan in, even if they're not making any money on your loan. That's because they're able to sustain other loans based on you. So it's super attractive to banks. And like Henry said, these are benchmark bottom line numbers. When me and Henry buy real estate, we're looking for higher numbers than that. You guys should also be looking for better numbers, but that's just kind of like where to start.
We're going to talk a little bit about rates. David, I'll let you take over. What are we looking at here, and how can people be paying attention to this?
All right. So you guys probably hear in the news, and Treasury and rates, and that's super front and center right now. But how does this affect mortgages, and how does this affect loans? It's very simple. The 5-year Treasury is government bonds. They are considered, 100% secure assets. Government will not default on their loan obligations. So this is the benchmark for anyone who's investing in an asset, a fixed income asset, right? You're not going to invest at a lower number of government bonds. It's got to be higher. So this is where the kind of bottom line of lending starts and goes upwards. If today the 5-year Treasury is at 4.3, your typical lender is going to add 200 bips or 2 points, 2 to 3 points on top of this rate to make it attractive to their investors. So you're looking at rates today roughly between 6.3 and 7.3%. That's kind of your simple way to understand where the rates are without calling a mortgage broker every time. You look at the Treasury, add 2 to 3%, and that's kind of where commercial rates are at. Now, is this high or low is a tricky question, because right now, I mean, it's pretty darn high. But if you look at this chart back in November and October, it was almost a full point higher. However, if you look at a longer history, I mean, Henry just switched to 5 years. So you're looking at to 2019 or so, and we are, it looks really bad. I mean, come on, we were in the mid twos and ones and almost zero during 2020 to 2021. We were like 0.2 on the Treasury, which means rates were 1 to 2 to 3% higher. So you were at 3.5. But caveat here is look back further. Let's get an all-time history here. All right, suddenly you're looking back over a longer time period. This is actually we're kind of average. Look at the 90s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. I mean, rates were high. I mean, the Treasury was paying 8.3%. You can get zero risk, 100% 8% money from the government. I mean, forget about buying a property at an 8 cap. You would have been buying property at a 15 or 20 cap to offset that risk. I mean, if you want to make 8%, just buy treasury bonds, you know? So we are actually not in a terrible place in terms of market averages. The reason why people are complaining a lot is because they bought properties when rates were 2 and 3%, and now their property is worth less than when they bought it. But if you're getting into the market now, you're actually in a good place. Probably over the next 24 to 48 months, you're going to see a drop in pricing. I imagine it's going to have to get that way just because it doesn't make sense to pay high rates and high prices. It made sense when rates were low. It didn't make sense, but kind of people were fooled into it, like I showed you before, because of the monthly payments were easy and affordable. But once you're getting to higher rates, the prices are going to have to drop. Now is a good time to really start looking. Don't be afraid of rates. They say date the rate, marry the property. Rates change. If you have your fundamentals well, if it's an 8 cap, remember, cap rates do not take into account debt at all for this reason. You don't want to care about debt when you look at a property. You want to see, does this fundamentally make sense? And then go for it.
Let's go to Luke's question. He has, what is your take on buying a lower in place cap rate if tenants are on short-term leases and have significant, they can at significantly below market rents?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I wish I had time to jump into this. This is probably a full hour to cover, but the short answer is yes. What you're talking about is a value add property. Value add properties, you got to look at the end value, the end game. If you have a way to turn around a property, and then you should be underwriting to the end value. That might be, getting tenants out and increasing rents. Underwrite to the higher rents, assuming that you can execute. That might be constructing a building, right? That might be any sort of value add, adding a floor, whatever you can do to add value. Underwrites to the end value and then work backwards and see if it's worth your time and money. Besides
that, we were talking about the debt service coverage ratio. You said right now banks are looking at around 1.25 to 1.3 for just about any kind of property.
So yeah, so absolutely depends on the property, the asset class. So multifamilies, typically you'll be able to do 1.2 debt service coverage ratio to 1.25, depending if you're going agency or private community bank. Also depending on the cap rate. Like I said before, if you're buying a great deal, the banks will be willing to negotiate. And I've seen this multiple times. On a good deal, the banks will give you a better offer, including allowing you to have a lower debt service coverage ratio. So that's one thing. On retail assets or office assets, you're going to need a much higher debt coverage ratio. I've seen banks require on kind of riskier asset classes up to 1.7, 1.8. Rooming houses need higher ratios, and other sort of asset classes can need in the 1.3 to 1.5 range.
Well, listen, guys, David, let's give David a round of applause or some love in the chat. Thank you so much, David. We appreciate you. I'm not just saying this because we're dear friends, but you are one of the best commercial lenders in the industry, one of the most experienced I've ever worked with. For those of you guys who have any clients that would like to, have just another set of eyes on their deals, David can be a fantastic asset for you guys. So if you can, David, drop your information in the chat, and I hope you guys reach out to him. He'll take great care of you.
Thank you so much, guys, and for listening. And Henry, of course, old buddy and a good friend and good hands. And any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm going to drop my own personal email. Shoot me an email. I'll try to answer as quickly as possible. Feel free to ask anything. And I mean that. There's no deal too stupid. We work with large deals here, but we also work with small deals. And
you do finance you do finance nationally, correct?
We work nationally, yes.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, David, for being on. Cool. Let's dive right back into the training. We talked some rates. I mean, look, thankfully, we definitely see some good headway coming by the way. I know we didn't really dive too much into it, but we definitely see that rates are going to be coming down over the next 12 to 24 months. So we definitely have a lot of awesome market and headway to go through, which we're super excited about. So I want to talk about something that not a lot of people talk about, which is what happens when you leave here. Many of you guys, I love this because this is something that I've seen over and over and over again as I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on being in part of seminars and conferences like this. And I've seen it time and time again with even friends and colleagues, right? Many of us will leave the session and take action, but most will do it when it's convenient. Some will do it until it's not convenient. And a slight few of you watching here today will do it until you achieve your goals because they are more committed to their goals than the convenience of doing the work. Let that sink in for a second. Which group are you going to be in, right? Which group? And also, it's like, guys, if you guys want higher levels of accountability, did you know that accountability, just a simple level of accountability from a third party like a coach, increases your success rate by 95%. And this is according to the American Society. This has been done over and over and over again. You are 95% more likely to succeed by simply having the accountability of a third party, simply like a coach. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you guys something fantastic for being on here today. And I want to give you guys the ability to take a look at something which is my most affordable coaching group session, which is the Millionaires, it's called the Commercial Real Estate Club, the CRE Club. Now, this is a fantastic opportunity, and many of you guys have seen it already. And many of you watching actually today are actually part of my coaching community. But the cool part about this group is that not only are you going to have the private Facebook group for collaborative opportunities where many agents in the groups are actually doing deals together. You also have the ability to schedule one-on-one calls with me anytime that you'd like. You have the hundreds of hours of pre-recorded content and trainings. You have 4 private courses that I've created that are all custom built in the bundle. But you also have the ability to do deals with me, right? There's many of you here who part of the program who have sent me deals where we're actually working on deals currently. On top of that, you have a locked-in price. Being a part of this program, and obviously the discounts of in-person events. By the way, we're hosting an in-person event, our very first one. It's going to be a private mastermind. It's not some big, huge events, right? We're literally only going to have 10 to 12 people there, but it's going to be an event in Miami. We're going to have a yacht networking trip. This will be something that will be coming up soon. You guys are going to be guaranteed 50% off of that purchase price for the tickets for that event. So I'm excited for that, and many of the coaching students already have that. Now, everything here, wouldn't be much, but everything we just talked about wouldn't be what it is without something called the 90-day challenge, which is what we've implemented recently, which is absolutely exploding results for our coaching students, by the way, right? Which is a really simple 90-day, right? Guys, look, I have all my water here, and I have several unopened water bottles here because I'm on 75 hard. I have to drink a gallon of water a day. It's like the simplicity of that. I've created something called the 9 for 90, which is 9 simple tasks done for 90 days, which is near guaranteed to get you guys results. So again, part of this program is we're doing it together, right? Like being held accountable together. Many people in my coaching program are already doing this that we launched a little while ago, and they're seeing fantastic results, which is 90 minutes of prospecting, 20 conversations a day, 2 leads generated a day, 1 LOI written a day, 1 listing pitched, 1 appointment set a day, 1 social media post, but it has to be a video, and then 1 workout a day for 20 minutes. And you have to give up 1 distraction. No matter what that is, it's up to you. So we've found that this is an unbelievably, a key way to success. On top of that, which by the way, everything included here is a value of $11,979, which by the way, we give away for $47 online right now. On top of all that though, which is where all the big shebang is this, okay? I've never offered this before. This is the first time I'm ever offering this ever. This is not even something that you could buy right now if you bought the Millionaires Club training, which I know that many of you on the program are part of it, which is not only, we're giving away 30 days of the coaching for $997. Okay. So what I'm going to be doing here though, is that this piece here in the center, I'm going to be doing a daily call with every single person who takes advantage of this today, which is not for all of you guys here. Imagine having me literally every single day, Monday through Friday, for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, every single day in your corner, reviewing deals. You can ask any question. I don't even do this with our other coaching group. For the very first time, I'm going to be doing a daily call, right? So if you guys would like to be a part of my daily calls, right? And plus you're going to get access to my Millionaires Club training, which is an $8,000 annual program. You guys are going to get 30 days access to it. So I'm going to give you 30 days access to my Millionaires Club training. So 4 sessions, which by the way, the next session is tomorrow. So you're going to be able to go from right here to the training tomorrow. You're also going to be getting a one-on-one Zoom call with me me, you're going to get over 200 hours of pre-recorded Millionaires Club content right off the bat. You're going to get all the pre-logged content. You're going to get access to our private WhatsApp group. And again, you're going to get 30 days of training in the Millionaires Club, plus the daily accountability call, which I've never done before. We're launching it for the very first time together. So again, total, you guys are going to get a $36,000 worth of value, literally for $997. It's a 97% off discount. So many of you guys have been looking to get into coaching, and I wanted to make it affordable. This is the most affordable version you could possibly get in coaching, and I'm doing this just because I really want to just support people. You're going to get 30 days in a program that literally costs $8,000 a year. I'm giving it away for $997. Plus the daily accountable calls, and every person who takes advantage of this program today, we are going to do a one-on-one call together, which will be recorded. You'll use that for you can use that for content. I'll be posting that on my YouTube channel. Hopefully the people will be sending you a lot of deals. We're going to be, not only that, but we're going to do a deep dive on everything that's going on. This is an opportune time for those of you who are paying attention right now to get involved with a program which is already helping dozens upon dozens, hundreds of individuals across the country make a lot more money each and every single year. And I'm doing it for the cheapest price possible, right? So a 97% off discount. And I'm doing something that I've never done before, which is the daily calls, which I'd love to be able to do with you guys, right? So, and by the way, like obviously if you want to stay for longer, you guys can just continue making the payments, which is perfectly fine. Whatever you're looking to do, I'm just here to make sure you guys feel supported. Thank you guys so much for following the journey. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys online. Take care, everybody.